Churches are battling to cope with the financial strain after lockdown regulations outlawed gatherings of more than 50 people. The South African Council of Churches this week requested a meeting with President Cyril Ramaphosa as some parts of the country prepare to move to level 3 of the lockdown regulations. Church leaders want to hold services under strict conditions. Will the South African government ease those regulations to allow people to attend church? Well, for more on this, I'm now joined by Bishop Malusi Mpumlwana, who's General Secretary of the South African Council of Churches. Bishop, thanks very much for your time. Welcome to the AM report. Perhaps we can start by just getting an idea of what transpired between that meeting with the President.
Well, I think I should say that although this is the most important thing in people's mouths right now, but actually a good part of our meeting with government was an offer that the churches are making. Offering their facilities for evacuation of victims of gender-based violence, for testing purposes, as well as providing counselors, trained counselors that can assist, families at this time. So it was as well as offering spaces for expanded classrooms, given the fact that you need to have much more physical distancing. So the bulk of the things we're talking about have to do with that, and of course the possibility of some kind of financial assistance to churches, as well as to enable them to cope with it as like anybody else struggling at this time. The question of coming back to churches, the South African Council of Churches created a task team about 2 weeks ago that was looking at under what conditions would we encourage going back, and that was chaired by Archbishop Thabo Makgoba of the Anglican Church. It included our leaders of the Council of African Independent Churches, as well as the Evangelical Alliance, to make sure that we cover all the traditions in the conversations. We then have laid out what we call norms and standards, the kind of conditions that we would want to hold ourselves accountable for in self-regulation, to make sure that it works, we're able to do this in a meaningful and effective way, COVID-compliant way. We must recognize that we're balancing a very, very, very delicate balance between the reality that churches have got the poorest communities that are immune compromised, as well as the elderly who are also immune compromised. We've got people with HIV, we've got people with TB, and we've got people that are extremely poor who have got diets that are compromised in terms of immunity. So we recognize that, but at the same time, we also know that the spirituality of the people requires that they do the necessary rituals and worship that they need to have. And so we're trying to balance this by saying, can we hold ourselves accountable to make sure that we'll be disciplined in this regard? I know that we have not been all that exemplary when it comes to funerals, because our people just flood, they will slaughter their beasts. We're saying no, no, no. We are in a new era. COVID is not going away. It's going to be with us for the next year or two, for as long as we don't have a vaccine. Therefore, we need to find a new way of being church and a new way of relating to one another.
Yeah, and my understanding is that part of that proposal included just allowing gatherings of about 10 people for worshipping in a context like a church service. But we also know that the tradition, the culture in the country is the fact that a lot of people attend church as families, In that type of context, that means we'll reach the number 10 with just 2 families, roughly speaking. Are you then planning to turn people away during those church services? Give us an idea of the ways through which you are planning to implement these proposals.
I think that there have been very many different recommendations made by churches. The SACC did not talk about 10. We talked about methods of containing the numbers. We thought, in fact, I think that the one time we mentioned the number, we said about 50, with the same that we're doing with funerals. But they are probably referring to another proposal from somebody else. But in our case, we were saying that if we're able to do this with funerals, we should be able to do it in our regular worship as well. And we can have a number of services in a week, and that on the Saturday and the Sunday have 2 services, and maybe Sundays during the week have services. We can also say that the people of a certain age only in this service, that kind of thing. But we have got a whole menu of what we call norms and standards that deal with, we don't sing, we don't do this, we don't do that, as well. How do you manage the collection? How do you manage it? So that in a way that every aspect, the church stewards know at every turn how to manage every bit of this. That's what we are recommending for at least the SSS member churches.
Yeah, but even then, I think the question still stands. I mean, you'll reach 50 very easily in some churches. I'm still very interested to find out what happens when you do get to that figure. I mean, is it a matter of genuinely turning people away as they arrive at the church doors?
The idea is that the people should register for services, because there are different services that we're going to. You're going to the Wednesday service, the Saturday morning service, the Saturday afternoon service. You've got to say, this is what I'm attending. You must note that these days, people actually use WhatsApp for notices. You don't longer have to stand up there and say, is that sort of thing all shop? And so there is enough of a communication system that enables people to register, and just exactly like you do it with funerals. You block the number at a certain point. But there isn't the space to go through the whole package of the recommendations. But I promise you, we've worked on every detail. That committee worked. I'll tell you, we had this for 3 weeks. Of church leaders that were really going through the detail. We know also, of course, that churches are not the same. A lot of of our congregations are in rural areas where the facilities are very difficult. There are churches that don't even have pews, that use a reed mat for sitting. And we're talking about how do you sanitize this kind of environment. And so even as we speak, we've got funerals that are being conducted where the ministers are not going to be provided with the masks and sanitizers by the government. We have to do this ourselves. And so we're already doing that and trying to procure as many for as many of particularly the rural churches, so that the minister is protected as they conduct their services. But we are saying...
Yeah, well, I was about to say we'll have to see what the president has to say. There's all kinds of issues, and there's no way we're going to be able to get through all of them in this one exchange. Perhaps an opportunity for you to come back to engage with us a bit longer on this. But let's leave things there, at least for now. Certainly appreciate your time. Bishop Malusi Mpumlwana, who's the General Secretary of the South African Council of Churches, certainly appreciate your insights in